We have huge breaking news from the NHL. We have reports from Frank Saravalli of dailyfaceoff.com indicating that the NHL is working on two schedules for next season. One includes the Coyotes remaining in Arizona. The other involves them relocating to Salt Lake City. So the major contingency plans are in place. And Frank says we could possibly have an announcement regarding relocation as early as April 18th. We'll discuss this new report and what can happen coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have another significant update in the Arizona Coyotes saga. If they're going to be staying in Arizona, they're going to be relocating, or what's going to happen here. As we've talked about here in recent days, obviously there's a lot going on. This is going to be a major story following in the next several weeks and months until this is, clarified and firm on what's coming next. Now, obviously, the latest that we know is that there's an auction on June 27th where the Coyotes hope and intend to be the successful bidders to purchase Arizona state land where they would like to build a new arena. Now, of course, that current land has no infrastructure, bare land, no water, no sewer. It's going to take a lot of work. There's a lot of hurdles. It's going to be a very expensive venture. Starting bid expected around $68 million. I think around $120 million or so estimated to get the other infrastructure in place before they can really start developing. So going to be very long drawn out process, very expensive process. No guarantee that they win this bid. I think the NHL would have liked to have seen a plan come together and be more solid before this so they can have a more definitive timeline. It's fair to say that the current NHL Board of Governors and the head of the NHLPA quite frustrated with the possibility of the Coyotes remaining in the small college arena, Mullet Arena, for potentially at least another 3 years, maybe more. I know the estimate for getting them into the new arena, if everything went perfect, was the start of the 27-28 season. And to be honest, based on everything we've learned about the land and the developments and everything moving forward, I think that timeline might be a little bit ambitious and a little bit, unrealistic. To be honest, it wouldn't shock me if it was a little bit longer and maybe if it would be 2028. So I think there's a lot of interested parties involved here that have a lot of concerns about that, which we've talked about. And this new report from Frank Saravalli of dailyfaceoff.com certainly indicates that. So the big news here is that they're working on the schedule for next year, which is, of course, the NHL's 24-25 NHL regular season. And in the background here, which of course is not public yet, they have two schedules they're working on. One involves the Coyotes getting something figured out and remaining in Arizona, likely obviously playing in Mullet Arena for another year. And the other one, of course, involves relocation and that team going to Salt Lake City to start their new identity and new franchise over there under the Ryan Smith ownership group. Now, of course, as we know, the prospective owner here in Salt Lake City, Ryan Smith, who owns the Utah Jazz of the NBA, recently had a social media post with a poll saying, if we get an NHL team here someday, what should we name it? We know he's been pretty aggressive and forthcoming with his desire to own an NHL team. The comments to say we're ready, willing, and able to take a team right now. They put out a call for the NHL to officially open its expansion process. They want a team and they want it bad. They're ready to take one on. The team could play in the Delta Center for the time being. Of course, Salt Lake City is expected and attempting to host the future Winter Olympics. I believe that would work out to be sometime in the next 8 years. So I don't know the exact year that they're going to be hosting, because I know we have 2026 coming up. I think it's 2030 that they're trying to host. I know the Summer Olympics for 2032, I believe it is, has already been named, but I don't believe there's been a winter host confirmed for 2030. So that is what they're hoping to do. And if they're successful in that, well, clearly they're going to have brand new state-of-the-art facility built before that, which would be, a new arena that the Utah Jazz and the NHL's new team there could share. Obviously, they can share the Delta Center for now, but there's already be work in place to get that new arena, to get the new state-of-the-art building up and going in the not-too-distant future. But the Delta Center is certainly more than capable of being NHL ready immediately and much bigger capacity than we'll see in Mullet Arena at ASU. So essentially, with the two schedules being worked on simultaneously here, this does not mean that the NHL has firmed up plans to relocate the franchise. Frank Seravalli makes it clear in this report that the deal is not done, but that the NHL has to have these contingency plans in place to protect itself. And as we heard before, we asked, what if they get to the auction in June 27th and it doesn't work out? What if that does not lead to them being the winners? What happens then? And well, the answer was at that point, it's going to be too late to relocate the team. They would end up doing another year at Mullet Arena. And then, of course, probably throughout the year, they'd likely be figuring out where they're heading next, because everybody involved here, the NHL and the team, have made comments that this is like their last-ditch effort to keep the team where it is, that if this new proposal that they're working on to buy this land and build this arena does not work out, then relocation is what's coming next. We already know that. But the next question now is, are they even going to make it to June 27th for this auction? The team could be relocated before then. As Seravalli points out in his new article that comes out today, there's a possibility we could see an announcement, he says, as early as April 18th, which is the day after the Coyotes play their final regular season game at Mullet Arena. Obviously, it may not be on that day. That's just an estimate as the earliest it could happen. Could come a little bit earlier or later than that. We know when the last relocation took place was Atlanta going to Winnipeg. That was finalized right around, I think it was May 20th or something like that. It was not announced until May 31st. And that, they said, was extremely tight. So I think they'd like to have something sooner than later. Of course, the other big factor here is with the schedule is if this team does relocate, they're going to be sharing an arena with an NBA franchise. So clearly, there's a lot more work involved with determining their schedule and the dates and availability so they can build that and coordinate with the NBA side as well. So certainly, if they're going to do it, they need to know sooner than later. At the end of the day, like I said, there's a lot of resistance from the NHLPA and from the Board of Governors that they just want this settled. And the concerns here so much right now, like I've said before, is clearly, everybody would like to see them get this figured out. It's a market that they do not want to bail on. It's a market that they don't want to see go away. They want to make it work, but they can't have the existing status quo there with the franchise being at Mullet Arena for another 3, maybe 4 years. They've already got a couple of seasons in now. When you're talking 5-6 years, that's not really what you call temporary. But it's believed that if everything works out, one of the things that's being discussed is that essentially Muriel would sell the team to Smith Entertainment Group via the NHL for north of $1 billion. We don't know the exact price. It's not confirmed, but Frank believes it was somewhere around 1.2 is the number that he's hearing. We'll see how things shake out if this happens. But that number would include a relocation fee. Now, you're probably saying, well, why would the Coyotes sell for that much? They're not worth that much. That's crazy. You're right. And it's not all of a fee for the team itself. Part of that's relocation. Relocation fees, like expansion fees, are shared amongst NHL ownership. So clearly that whatever that number is for the breakdown would be shared amongst the other NHL franchises. So that's how that would work. But that's the number that they're hearing here. Of course, they want to tread through this delicately. They want to make sure from a legal perspective that Alex Muriel was satisfied here. Essentially, they want to make sure that he's not going to pursue legal action. They want to make sure everything's clean, not messy. They want to make sure he's happy, and that it's believed that part of the sale condition is that Alex Muriel will be able to basically what you'd say reactivate the Arizona Coyotes name and trademarks and all of that, and have first right of refusal at the next version of the Arizona Coyotes, that they would get an expansion team when they're ready to be able to move forward. Of course, they'd have to be approved still by the NHL and their Board of Governors, but this time they would have an NHL arena in place. It may not be completely built, but at the very least, they would have their plans firmly in place and likely at the very least be started, at the very least. So it would give Muriel, an option to get back into NHL ownership, whenever that time may come. I'm not sure they'd put a timeline on it, probably not. But I would suspect that the NHL, if they're going to be going through the expansion process here again, which we all think, I would say be within 3 to 5 years. NHL, like I said, it could officially open the expansion process as early as this summer. They may have kind of like the Coyotes on the back burner until they get a chance to move further along with their plans here. But it's believed that could be part of this as well to kind of make things, worth it for the current owner there, remember Alex Muriel, and to make sure that he's happy. They obviously don't want anything to get messy from a legal perspective, so they want to make sure that everything works out from that perspective. So the other thing I find very interesting here is the Arizona Coyotes as a team and the NHL as a league both declined comment on this story. They've both been pretty outspoken in the past, in the very recent past, mind you, whenever anything has come up publicly about the possibility of the Coyotes not working out and them relocating. The team has really gone quite far along with issuing renderings of their new arena and entertainment complex, kind of hyping up the fan base that we're going to this auction, we're going to win, here's what we're going to build. They don't even own the land yet, but they're obviously quite far along with everything. And you could say, well, why would they do that if this is being worked on in the background? And essentially, they want to keep the fan base optimistic. They want to keep the fan base hopeful. And if they do have this agreement in place that they lose the team, well, they're still going to be moving forward with the project, and he would still hope to bring back another version of the Arizona Coyotes down the road. That would be fully expected there. But like I said, the team and the league have both been pretty outspoken to deny reports and say, no, we're confident this is going to work. And now they're not talking. So that tells us right there, in my opinion, that there is more to the story. And it's not just Frank Saravalli. I just listened to Elliotte Friedman do his daily hit on the Jeff Merrick show, which airs at noon Eastern time. He came on and he said that he believes Frank's report here from the Daily Faceoff is full of accuracy. He said he can't 100% absolutely guarantee everything's airtight, but he has heard a lot of the same things, and that he believes that there's a lot of legitimacy and accuracy to this reporting. So at the end of the day, we've got two top-notch NHL reporters, insiders, if you will, confirming this information. So I don't expect that the NHL would come out publicly and say, yeah, we're working on two schedules. We're not confident this is going to work out. We're getting a lot of pressure here from the Board of Governors and the NHLPA to move this team. So, we want to go about things this way. Like, they're not going to do that. There's no way that Gary Bettman or Bill Daly would ever come out and tell us that. That's just crazy to think. There's also reports that Friedman actually added on that he had heard that some players on the Coyotes' current roster are looking into their rights to see if the team relocates. Is there anything they can do if they don't want to go with the team? Obviously, they didn't sign on to play in Utah and Salt Lake City. They signed on to play in Arizona. Obviously, most players, I would suspect, are really, at the end of the day, they want to honor their contracts. They want to play in the NHL. You're going to go. And like Friedman said, he said from what he's heard, the players checking in to see if they have any rights, the answer is really no. At the end of the day, your contract belongs to the team. The team is sold. Everything transfers to the new ownership. Now, the player, the only thing they could really do at that point would be to say to the new owner, or I guess I'm not sure how much of the executive team will go with them. That's the other thing we don't know. I know when we saw the Atlanta team moved to Winnipeg, the new ownership put their own people in place. The existing management group did not go with them. So again, I don't know how that's all going to work. If Ryan Smith would be interested in keeping on any of those people, there's a lot of people's jobs that would be possibly at stake with this franchise in Arizona that you certainly feel for. A lot of people, like players, the management team, like they're a little bit more used to relocating and being on the move for their jobs, where a lot of these other people that work in the offices and the people that don't necessarily travel all the time, like they got the roots there. Like they're not necessarily looking to move, right? So you feel for those people, and I don't know how that would be handled, because clearly a new owner, I don't believe they're really obligated to take any of those other people with them. I'm not sure how that all is going to pan out. So there's all that to think about here as well. But from a player perspective, yeah, Elliotte has heard that some players might not be crazy about going elsewhere. They want to play in Arizona, but they really don't have a choice. They can ask to be traded and talk to the new owner or the GM, if that's still Bill Armstrong or somebody different at that point, and they could try to see if they want to accommodate that or not. Again, they don't have to. At the end of the day, everything transfers, and that's the way she goes. But like we've said before, if this relocation happens, and just to make it clear, I'm not cheering for this. I don't think any of the reporters are cheering for this. But at the same time, we have to be real and stay on top of the news stories and report them just as they are, as factual as we can be. And, sometimes rumors turn out to be true and sometimes they don't. But all indications are that this is a very fluid situation. There's a lot that can change in a matter of minutes, hours, days, and we're going to stay on top of it and see what happens. But we could have a major story on our hands here that the team is relocating. We could have a new team in Salt Lake City as early as this fall for the 24-25 NHL season. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think this is realistic? And if so, is the NHL right to go back to this market? It's a big market. I mean, I can understand why they wanted to make it work. We're seeing possibility of going back to Atlanta for round 3. Now, some of these are big U.S. markets. From a TV perspective, from a ticket revenue perspective, and getting the arenas full, I understand. I completely understand why they want this to work. Will it work? Can they get the arena in the right situation where they can fill the building regularly? With the expansion rules the way they are now too, clearly they might have a good head start to be off to a good start if they get a new expansion franchise, if this all plays out the way this report indicates that it's quite possible. So let me know your thoughts on this story and what you think is going to happen down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.